All right. Hello, Megan.
Hi.
Let's get started. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for the last webinar of the week. Just today, we announced the lineup for next week. We've got some great speakers next week, so make sure you check those out. But today, we're joined by Megan Burt. If anyone who hasn't been able to access the webinar, let them know. If you know anyone that hasn't been able to access the webinar, let them know that it's also broadcasting live on YouTube. As always, if you have any questions about our guest's presentation today, just leave them in the Q&A box. The chat box is disabled, and I will try and get them to Megan by the end of the session, well, at the end of the session, but know that we get so many questions coming through that we just can't answer them all. So I will keep them relevant to Megan's presentation. And if you have any other questions about sharks, feel free to go and visit our website because there's loads of really great resources on there and you will most certainly find the answer to your question. Also in the previous webinars, we've also answered lots of general shark questions. So if you have any of those, go and check them out. I will also share a link in the chat box and some answers with the most frequently asked questions, and you can just see them there. But for now, let's welcome our panelist, Megan Burt. Megan is a veterinary technician in the New England area, and for the past 14 years, she's been working exclusively in veterinary ophthalmology. Which is the medicine of the eyes. And for the past 3 years, she's been working alongside someone that some of you might have heard of before, Dr. Greg Skomal, to study vision in sharks. Megan, welcome. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Hi.
Super excited about today's talk. I know nothing about shark vision, so I'm really excited to learn lots myself. How are you?
I'm good. It's a little chilly up in New England right now and it's rainy, but we're all home.
So what we'll do is I'll just ask you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and then we can get started on the presentation.
Sure. Well, like she said, I've been working in veterinary ophthalmology for the past 14 years. So I've gotten to work with a lot of different species of animals. We have done some really cool surgeries on fish, working with the New England Aquarium, corneal transplants on fish, things like that have been really interesting. But we mainly see dogs, cats, and then I get to bring in all the shark eyes to my work and get everybody interested in that. So it's been fun. But yeah, I grew up in Mass and live in New Hampshire now. So things have been going well.
Great. So you don't just work on sharks? Sharks is only one part of your work?
Yeah, yep. Where I work in the veterinary hospital is mainly, we see different species, but it's mainly dogs and cats that we're seeing every day. The sharks is something like I've always been interested in. And I've volunteered for the past like 5-6 years with different shark organizations. So got to meet Greg Skomal probably about 5 years ago. And he knew I was interested in eyes. And so we just started talking and started doing some research together and it kind of took off. We talk regularly and he gets me all different species of shark eyes to look at, which has been fun. And I've been able to work with the University of Wisconsin, and now I'm working with UC Davis Veterinary School to do retinal mapping and things like that, so we can kind of see exactly what white sharks are seeing, which has been pretty interesting.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear more about it. Before we get started, I have one question for you that I ask all of our guests. What's your favorite species of sharks?
It's definitely going to be the white shark. I've always, even as a kid, have been fascinated by them. I remember somebody asking me when I was 8 years old what I was going to do when I grew up. And I said, I was going to swim with sharks, of course. And people thought I was crazy. But I think just, we're starting to learn more and more about them, but there's still, I think, a lot of secrets about them that we don't know. And I've just kind of been fascinated with them. So kind of stuck with researching their eyes since I've been able to get so many from Dr. Skomal. So it's been neat.
Great. So why don't we let you get on with your presentation? I can't wait to hear it. And then at the end, I'll ask you lots of questions.
All right, that sounds good. So I hope everybody is staying safe at home, and you've got the chance to check out some great lectures over the past week. But what we'll do is kind of to understand the eye, I'll kind of show an example here. If we look at the human eye versus the shark eye, in order to kind of understand how they visualize their environment, we kind of have to understand a little bit of anatomy of the eye. And really, the shark eye is pretty similar to a human eye. It has all the same working components. You can kind of think of your eye as being like a glorified water balloon, and maybe like a camera being its working parts. So looking at this, we all have the cornea, the iris, which is here, the lens, your retina is in the back of the eye. And then take a look at this slide here. This is a cross-section of a white shark eye that I got working with the University of Wisconsin. I went there and we got some great photos of white shark eyes. So this is kind of a cross section of the eye. So the cornea is here. The lens is right behind, the iris is right behind. The lens is in the middle and the retina is along the back. But you can see all around the eye, there's a lot of thick scleral and connective tissue. So this shows how protected the white shark's eye actually is. There's a lot of massive muscle in the back of the eye as well, the optic nerve, just a lot of connective tissue, a lot of muscles. They really have a great protection to their eye. And what I will do is kind of show you a model of an eye, just to get you an idea of the eye itself. So have to understand a little bit of anatomy. So the first part of the eye is your cornea. And this is the part of the eye that you would place your contact lens on if you wore contacts. So it's the clear coating to your eye. You can think of it as like aquarium glass. It holds everything in, right? So all the water stays in the back. It can also be thought of as the glass to your camera. You want to compare it to a camera. So behind your cornea is your iris. So this is the colored part of your eye, where if you have brown, blue, or green eyes, this is where you would see it. It's made up of connective tissue, muscles, and melanin pigment, which is the color, makes up the color of your eye. So the iris kind of acts as like an aperture, like what your camera would, to allow light in and out of your eye. So it constricts and dilates so that you can let light in or not. And what a lot of people don't understand is when you talk about the pupil, people think it's an actual structure, but it's really not. What the pupil is a hole. So, and it's black because it's dark in the back of your eye. So the pupil is what lets the light in and out. And there are many different pupil shapes, especially when you get into aquatics. They have insane pupil shapes and sizes. And then behind all of that is your lens. And the lens is what bends light onto your retina so that you can see. So it focuses, basically, kind of like the lens of your camera. So your lens is clear. When a human gets cataracts or your dog gets cataracts, this is where they actually form. A lot of people will say, you know, my dog has a cataract in the front of its eye, and they think it's the cornea, but it's really in the lens. So this is where cataract surgery would be performed. Let's put that back. So then in the back of the eye, you have your retina. Get a shot of that. So the retina lies all along the back of your eye, goes to your optic nerve. And this is what contains all your photoreceptors, how you visualize your image, basically. Sharks have something different in the back of their retina that we don't have, called a tapetum. And the tapetum is actually, your dogs and cats have them as well. It helps them see better in dim light. And we'll get into that a little bit later. What I will do is go back to a few slides here. And we'll look at, sharks have 6 senses: the smell, hearing, touch, taste, sight, and electromagnetism. Their ocular anatomy is actually highly developed. They see quite well. And the way that they see kind of corresponds to the environment in which it lives in. So if you look at different species of sharks, you have like your deep sea sharks. So you have like your ghost shark, your goblin, the frilled shark, and the Greenland shark. These are all deep sea species. So they have big dilated round pupils because they need to get in as much light as possible in order to see. So their pupils are fully dilated. You see this green glow in the back of their eyes, and that's their tapetum. So that's what's helping them kind of reflect light so that they can see well. The Greenland shark really is kind of a mysterious animal. 90% of Greenland sharks are actually blind. You'll see there's this creature hanging off of the Greenland shark's eye. That is a copepod parasite, and they like to feed on the Greenland shark's cornea, and it blinds them. It causes pigment to build up on their cornea. And so 90% of Greenland sharks are actually blind. So it's kind of amazing how they live, especially when they live for hundreds and hundreds of years, because they are one of the oldest living species of sharks. So it's pretty interesting, you know, that even blind sharks, they have such great other senses that they can rely on, that they do quite well without vision, which is good. I don't know how they do it, especially being deep water, but they do it. And then when you start to look at more of your reef sharks, your middle level sharks, they have very reactive pupils, and they can come in various different, the pupils can come in various different stages: vertical slits, horizontal slits, oblique slits, all different kinds of things. You know, your lemon shark, there's a white tip reef shark. They have almost like a keyhole shaped pupil with little notches taken out of it. And a lot of people, you know, there's a lot of question as to why they have these unique pupils. And it's likely related to the environment in which they live in, how different rays of light come into their eye and hit their lens. It's pretty interesting, but they all can see a little bit differently, and they need to have these super constricting and moving pupils in order to visualize their environment. So here are some more examples of different pupil shapes. The top left being a cuttlefish, you have your octopus, and your cat shark. So they all have really unique pupil shapes that kind of lead to the environment in which they live in. It could be to shade light. lots of different theories as to why they have these very unique shaped pupils. They're also, the interesting part about this is researchers have found that in the retina of these different species, they have a visual streak of enhanced photoreceptors in the area of the pupil that lines up directly with its shape, kind of giving them really superior vision in those areas where the pupil constricts down to, which is pretty interesting. So they definitely have pretty advanced systems. So another question we kind of get a lot is, do sharks blink? They do not blink. They don't have to. They're underwater. The water kind of leans away at their eye. But there are sharks that do have what's called like a third eyelid. It's a nictitating membrane. Your dogs and your cats have them as well. Kind of acts as a shade and acts as protection. So there are certain species that have them, the blue shark, the tiger shark, lemon sharks have them as well. You might, if you ever catch any video from like Tiger Beach and you see divers like hand feeding the tiger sharks, you'll see their third eyelids come up a lot for protection. So that's how they protect their corneas. The white shark, on the other hand, they're a little different. They actually roll their eyes backwards and expose that really thick cartilage that you saw in some of the slides I had first showed. And that protects their eye quite well, especially when you see videos on Discovery, you'll see them going after seals and their eyes will be completely rolled back in their head. They do that because seals have claws and they'll go right after them and they'll go right after their eyes. So a lot of times you'll also see scratches all along around their eyes. So they definitely protect them quite well by rolling their eyes back. Going back to the tapetum, the retina is quite complicated. It gets more into like neuroscience and things like that. But that tapetum is really what helps them see in lower light. It's that green glow that you'll see from your dog or your cat at night, or if you're kind of in the woods, running through the woods with your dog and they're jumping over everything, but you're tripping, it's because they have this tapetum. It's that deer in headlight look where you see that green reflection. And in the retina, you have your rods and your cones. The rods and the cones are photoreceptors. The rods help us function in lower light, and the cones are the photoreceptors that give us color vision, and they function best in bright light. And that's important to know because a lot of the questions that we get are, do sharks see in color? And the answer is no. Sharks have monochromatic vision, so they only have one cone present in their retina. And in order to have color vision, you need to have more than one cone. So humans have 3 cones. So we have full color vision. Dogs and cats have 2, so they have some form of color vision. But having one cone does not give you color vision. So they don't see in color, but it is believed that they have some sort of like rudimentary color vision of some sort where they can differentiate contrast between the background and an object. So it is believed that somehow, and it's unknown as to how they do it, that there is a way that they see color of some sort, but it's not a true color vision. And that was based on a research project back in 2011 that was discovered, that they do not have color vision. So that might throw a lot of these theories of don't wear a certain color in the ocean, hard to say. So those are some of the things that need to be further researched. So bringing up new research, hopefully I will be able to work a little more closely with the UC Davis Vet School and get some answers as to what white sharks are actually seeing. I do know quite a bit already, but I'm looking to get some retinal mapping done to be able to really see where, you know, if they have a visual streak in the back of their eye, what they're seeing, and kind of go from there. So I've got some pretty interesting stuff already. Hoping to kind of put that all together and get everything published and see if there are more live studies that I can be doing to kind of go along with that research. So that is pretty much all I have for right now. I know that there could be some questions here.
All right, thank you so much, Megan. That was fantastic, really interesting.
Yeah, thanks.
I hope everyone else found it really interesting too. I have some questions coming through. I know that you've taken a pathway to doing what you do that's very different from what other people we have on the show, on the webinars have. But I want to ask you, what is your advice for children out there who might want to study sharks when they grow older or work with sharks?
I think the best thing to do is to get involved. There are so many nonprofit groups out there that are really doing a lot, getting people involved, learning, you know, getting to meet people, you know, working with universities. There's so much research going on. I think, you know, learning a lot about what's going on in your area or wherever you live. There's likely something in your area that you can get involved with. And if not, you know, I know we're all stuck home right now, but you can, you know, look online at different nonprofits and shark research groups and get involved from afar. I think, you know, the more people you start to get to know and become a part of, and, you know, the more you can learn.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Do you want to just stop sharing your screen and then we can get cracking with some of the questions that we've got?
Sure.
Great. Fantastic.
Right.
All right. So I have some great questions coming through. One of the very popular ones is, what do sharks have different colored eyes? And if so, what range of colors do they have?
Yep. So sharks do have different colored irises. The most common color they have is actually brown. The white shark has a brown iris, so does the mako shark, salmon shark, and the porbeagle shark. They all have a brown iris. Contrary to what a lot of people believed that they had a blue iris, they actually do not. That is part of the research I'm doing as well. But there are some sharks, even like the cat shark or the lemon shark, I think they have a little more of a greenish in their iris as well. So there are different colors out there. And some of them are even oddly colored. And it might help with some camouflage for them. But most of the predatory species, I think, are brown from what I've seen. Or the eyes that I've had. They've all been brown.
Fantastic. Okay. We also have, is there another animal whose eyes are very similar to shark eyes?
Um, well, there are a lot of eyes. I mean, the eyes in general are pretty similar to each other as far as structures that they all have, like, because we all have a cornea, an iris, and a lens and a retina. But the aquatics are mainly all pretty similar. A fish is pretty similar to a shark. It's probably more of size of the lens, how they accommodate their lens as well. You know, as humans and like dogs and cats, we kind of change the shape of our lens to, you know, bend light onto the retina, where a shark actually, and a fish, they actually move their lens forward and backward in order to get a better picture onto their retina. So there are some differences.
Fantastic. So we've been asked a few times, what shark that you have studied has, in your opinion, the best vision?
I think they all have pretty good vision. It's very precise. I think probably the sharks that have the more mobile pupils, the ones that can really constrict their pupils down, like the white shark, the mako shark, probably the more predatory sharks, they really have pretty precise vision. Their pupils can get so tiny, they almost look like a tiny line. You can hardly tell that there's even a pupil there. And that means they're focused so precisely that they really do have really, really good vision.
Oh, that's cool.
Now, whether they see, it's kind of hard to say how they see in different, outside of that slit, either it's a vertical slit or a horizontal slit. There are areas that would be a little blurry outside of that slit. But as soon as they move their eye, they can see precisely again. So that there are some differences, but they see pretty precisely when they're focused.
Great. That's so interesting. So we got asked, how far can sharks see? Obviously, it's obviously dependent on the species, I imagine, but
yeah, I think they can pretty much all see right about like 50 feet. I know the white shark can see about 50 feet out. So pretty good, pretty decent.
Do they, how light sensitive are they?
That is questionable, actually. You know, they have to be able to see in really bright light, especially the reef sharks. And I know there's been a lot of really interesting research with the reef sharks and how they actually can use their tapetum to release these melanin pigments to block out bright light to help enhance their vision. So they really, I think, can see well in bright light. There has been some question with the white shark in bright light. Based on research, they do tend to always attack with the sun at their back. But that could also be a strategic method for them as well. When they're going after a seal, they always keep the sun to their back. And they also hunt usually dusk and dawn in darker water, but it could also, again, be strategic, in which they're trying to ambush prey. And they do utilize the sun in order to kind of catch their prey and things like that. So whether it's them just being very smart, or maybe they do have some trouble in very bright light, that's all kind of questionable. But I think that they do see well in bright light as well, but I think probably the reef sharks see the best in bright light.
Mm-hmm. And is there, speaking of reef sharks, is there much of a difference, and which of them, so I guess this is a two-part question. Is there much of a difference between shallow water reef sharks and deep sea shark vision? And in that case, do one of the two rely on vision more than the other?
Yeah, they probably both, well, the reef shark probably needs to rely more on vision because they're really fast moving sharks, typically catching prey in the reefs and things like that. The deep sea sharks, they're, I think, a slower moving shark as well, especially if you think of the Greenland shark. Their pupils are completely dilated and they don't move their pupils at all because they're never in the light. So they need to rely on the tapetum and as much light as they can get in. So I think the reef sharks have to rely on vision probably a lot more to get their prey and be able to capture it. So they have to, I think, see better. Where the slower moving sharks, I'm not exactly sure with the deep sea sharks how they do it. I don't even know if it's been studied because you can only get down there with underwater vehicles usually. So I don't know how much is known about the deep sea shark's vision.
Have you studied any?
Sorry?
Have you studied any deep sea sharks?
I haven't. No. I am fascinated by them though. They are pretty neat.
They are very cool. And it's so interesting that there are new sharks being discovered all the time, and especially in the deep.
Yep. Yeah, I would think if a deep sea shark, lives like 10,000 feet down, they'd probably have to have a pretty advanced visual system in order to live. But maybe not if you look at the Greenland shark who can't see.
Yeah. And so speaking of the Greenland shark, someone was asking us, Alina was asking us, if copepods make the Greenland shark blind, then why aren't they latching onto other sharks as well?
I think it might have something to do with what their corneal epithelium is made up of. It's either that or it's a different kind of parasitic copepod that's in the deep sea. It might not be as similar to the parasites or the copepods that we're seeing, up at our depths of the ocean. So I'm not exactly sure. It's an interesting question because I don't know anything about that particular parasite. So I'm thinking it might be more of a deeper sea parasite. And it might have something to do with whatever their corneal epithelium is made up of. They like it.
Yeah,
I'm guessing it's different.
A combination of all of those things.
Yeah. Yep.
Fantastic. Okay, we've got a few more questions. Riley, age 7, wonders how far to the side and back can sharks see?
They can see pretty well. They have a blind spot right in front of their snout and behind their tail. I think the shark that has one of the best 360-degree visions is the hammerhead, because they have eyes on the sides. They don't see well right in front of them. Sorry, my cat is coming to visit me. They have eyes on the sides of their heads, so they have a really good 360-degree view. But sharks can see well on the side, on both sides. So it's just that blind spot in the front and behind that they have. So.
Fantastic. Okay. Theo, age 6. Oh no, we've answered that one. Theo, I have the answer to your question. Of all the sharks that you've seen, we've had a few questions asking, of all the shark eyes that you've seen, which one has had the biggest?
The white shark has had the biggest that I've seen. I think it was probably the first set of shark eyes that I got from Dr. Skomal was from an adult male shark that got itself cast out on the beach in Cape Cod. And they were quite large. And when I went to the University of Wisconsin, they told me they had eyes of a blue shark that they showed me there, but they said that the white shark was the second largest that they had seen as well, compared to the blue shark that they had. So the white shark has definitely been the biggest. And then the second would be the porbeagle shark. That's also related to the white shark. They had pretty big eyes as well.
And that's an absolute size, I guess. In relation to their body, is that also the case that they have the biggest eyes compared to their body?
The big-eyed thresher actually has pretty large eyes as well. So I think that they're probably pretty similar. I would think, well, the whale shark's eyes are actually kind of tiny compared to the size of their bodies, but they have larger eyes as well, just because of their size. But the largest I've personally seen up close has been the white shark.
I imagine that a lot of deep sea sharks or chimeras probably have very large eyes in comparison relative to their body.
Yeah, yep, definitely.
All right, I think that's pretty much rounds up some of the questions that we've been having. There's loads coming through once again, and we're really sorry we can't get to all of them. I've answered quite a lot of them in the Q&A section as well. It might be that your question has already been answered, so check there. And once again, you can also look at the website, because we have so many resources coming through. Next week, we've got people talking about chimeras, which are relatives to sharks. We've got people talking about the teeth of sharks, and I'll be giving an introduction to sharks. So one that we've given a couple of times again, I'll be giving it again on Monday. So if you have any general questions about sharks, feel free to go to tune back in on Monday and watch that. And with that, thank you so much, Megan. That was really fantastic. Really enjoyed it. Really interesting. I hope everyone out there also enjoyed it. And I hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And see you soon, hopefully.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.